Good morning. So we're here to read a chapter a day, and today we're reading chapter 19. And this chapter has a beautiful prayer to lead it to the Holy Spirit. In section 4, section C, paragraph 13, we're going to encounter a beautiful prayer to the Holy Spirit. So, chapter 19 is entitled From Sin to Peace, and it has 4 sections and 4 subsections. So before we start reading, let me say the Healer's Prayer so we can give this over to the Holy Spirit. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will heal as I let Him teach me how to heal. We are so blessed we now have this book. The book translator, Rosa Maria Wynn, she had a huge, beautiful, blessed task in front of her, and she allowed us to have this book into Spanish. She just came to my mind right now. And I started thinking about how in the beginning people just had access to pages, and it was not even in a book. And now we have it in a book. And not only that, we have it in Kindle, so we can take it with us lightless with our phone anywhere we go, so we can read the text. And we can practice our lessons and, just have a quick reference. So I encourage everybody, read the text. A Course in Miracles is a mind training course that takes you from sin to peace, actually, from thinking that we are sinful to knowing who we truly are. So anyway, let's start with chapter 19. The first section is entitled Healing Through Faith. The second one, Sin versus Error. The third one, The Unreality of Sin. The fourth one, The Obstacles to Peace. The first obstacle is A, a desire to get rid of it. The second one, B, their belief the body is valuable for what it offers. The third obstacle, C, the attraction of death. And the fourth obstacle, D, the fear of God. So we have 4 obstacles to peace, and we'll go over them today. First section, Healing Through Faith. 1. We said before that when a situation has been dedicated wholly to truth, peace is inevitable. Its attainment is a criterion by which the wholeness of the dedication can be safely assumed. But we also said that peace without faith will never be attained, for what is wholly dedicated to truth as its only goal is brought to truth by faith. So faith allows us to take anything to truth. The faith encompasses everyone involved, for only thus the situation is perceived as meaningful. So when we're looking for something that's the best for the whole, then something is meaningful and as a whole. And everyone must be involved in it, or else your faith is limited and your dedication incomplete. 2. Every situation properly perceived becomes an opportunity to heal the Son of God. Every situation properly perceived becomes an opportunity to heal the Son of God. And He is healed because you offered faith to Him, given Him to the Holy Spirit, and releasing Him from every demand your ego would make of Him. Thus, do you see him free? And in this vision does the Holy Spirit share. And since he shares it, he has given it, and so he healed through you. It is your joining him in a united purpose that makes this purpose real, because you make it whole. And this is healing. The body is healed because you came without it and joined the mind in which all healing rests. 3. The body cannot heal because it cannot make itself sick. It needs no healing. Its health or sickness depends entirely on how the mind perceives it and the purpose that the mind would use for it. And it is obvious a segment of the mind can see itself as separated from the universal purpose. When this occurs, the body becomes its weapon, used against this purpose to demonstrate the fact that separation has occurred. The body thus becomes the instrument of illusion, acting accordingly, seeing what is not there, hearing what truth has never said, and behaving insanely, being imprisoned by insanity. 4. Do not overlook our earlier statement that faithlessness leads straight to illusions. For faithlessness is the perception of a brother as a body, and the body cannot be used for purposes of union. If then you see him as a body, you have established a condition in which uniting with him becomes impossible. Your faithlessness to him has separated you from him and kept you both apart from being healed. Your faithlessness has thus opposed the Holy Spirit's purpose and brought illusions centered on the body to stand between you. And the body will seem to be sick, for you have made of it an enemy of healing and the opposite of truth. We have made of it an enemy of healing and the opposite of truth. 5. It cannot be difficult to realize that faith must be the opposite of faithlessness, but the difference in how they operate is less apparent, though it follows directly from the fundamental difference in what they are. Faithlessness would allow limit and attack. Faith would remove all limitations and make whole. Faithlessness would destroy and separate. Faith would unite and heal. Faithlessness would interpose illusions between the Son of God and his Creator. Faith would remove all obstacles that seem to rise between them. Faithlessness is wholly dedicated to illusions, faith wholly to truth. 6. A partial dedication is impossible. Truth is the absence of illusion, illusion the absence of truth. Both cannot be together or perceived in the same place. To dedicate yourself to both is to set up a goal forever impossible to attain, for part of it is sought through the body, though as a means for seeking out reality through attack, while the other part would heal and therefore calls upon the mind and not the body. The inevitable compromise is the belief that the body must be healed and not the mind. For this divided goal has given both an equal reality and can seem to be possible only if the mind is limited to the body and divided into little parts with seeming wholeness but without connection. 7. This will not harm the body, but it will keep a delusional thought system in the mind. Here then is healing needed, and it is here that healing is. For God gave healing not apart from sickness, nor established remedy where sickness cannot be. They are together, and when they are seen together, all attempts to keep both truth and illusion in the mind where both must be are recognized as dedication to illusions and given up when brought to truth and seen as totally unreconcilable with truth in any aspect or in any way. 8. Truth and illusion have no connection. This will remain forever true, however much you seek to connect them. But illusions are always connected as is truth. Each is united, a complete thought system, but totally disconnected to each other. Where there is no overlap, the separation must be complete. And to perceive this is to recognize where separation is and where it must be healed. The result of an idea is never separate from its source. The idea of separation produced the body and remains connected to it, making it sick because of its identification with it. 9. You think you are protecting the body by hiding this connection. For this concealment seems to keep your identification safe from the attack of truth, attack quote unquote. If you but understood how much this strange concealment has hurt your mind and how confused your own identification has become to you because of it, you do not see how great a devastation wrought by your faithlessness. For faithlessness is an attack which seems to be justified by its results. For by withholding faith you see only what is unworthy of it, and cannot look beyond the barrier to what is joined with you. To have faith is to heal. It is the sign that you have accepted the atonement for yourself and would therefore share it. By faith you offer the gift of freedom from the past, which you have received. You do not use anything your brother has done before to condemn him now. You freely choose to overlook his errors, looking past all barriers between yourself and his, and seeing them as one. And in that one you see your faith is fully justified. There is no justification for faithlessness, but faith is always justified. 11. Faith is the opposite of fear, as much a part of love as fear is of attack. Faith is the acknowledgement of union. It is a gracious acknowledgement of every son of God as a son of your most loving Father, loved by him like you, and therefore loved by you as yourself. It is his love that joins you, and for his love you would keep no one separate from yours. Each one appears just as he is perceived in the holy instant, united in your purpose to be released from guilt, and in your faith he is released. You saw the Christ in him, and he was healed, because you looked on what makes faith forever justified in everyone. 12. Faith is the gift of God through him whom God has given you. Faithlessness looks upon the Son of God and judges him unworthy of forgiveness. But through the eyes of faith, the Son of God is seen already forgiven, free of all guilt he laid upon himself. Faith sees him only now, because it looks not to the past to judge him, but would see him only what it would see in you. What would see in him only what it would see in you. It sees not through the body's eyes, nor looks to bodies for its justification. It is the messenger of the new perception, sent forth to gather witnesses unto its coming and to return their messages to you. 13. Faith is as easily exchanged for knowledge as is the real world. For faith arises from the Holy Spirit's perception and is a sign you share it with Him. Faith is a gift you offer to the Son of God through Him, and wholly acceptable to His Father as to Him, and therefore offered you. Your holy relationship with its new purpose offers you faith to give unto each other. Your faithlessness has driven you apart, and so you did not recognize salvation in each other. But faith unites you in the holiness you see, not through the body's eyes, but in the sight of Him, who joined you and in whom you are united. 14. Grace is not given to a body but to a mind, and the mind that receives it looks instantly beyond the body and sees the holy place where it was healed. There is the altar where the grace was given, in which it stands. Do you then offer grace and blessing to each other? For you stand at the same altar where grace was laid for both of you. And be you healed by grace together, and you may heal through faith. 15. In the holy instant you stand before the altar God raised unto Himself, and both of you. Lay faithlessness aside and come to it together. There will you see the miracle of your relationship as it was made again through faith. And there it is that you will realize that there is nothing faith cannot forgive. There is nothing faith cannot forgive. No error interferes with its calm sight, which brings the miracle of healing with equal ease to all of them. For what the messengers of love are sent to do, they do, returning the glad tidings that it was done to you who stand together before the altar from which they were sent forth. 16. As faithlessness will keep you little kingdoms barren and separate, so will faith help the Holy Spirit prepare the ground for the most holy garden that He would make for it. For faith brings peace, and so it calls on truth to enter and make lovely what has already been prepared for loveliness. Truth follows faith and peace, completing the process of making lovely that they begin. Faith brings peace, and so it calls on truth. Faith, peace, truth. For faith is still a learning goal, no longer needed when the lesson has been learned. 17. But truth will stay forever. Let then your dedication be to the eternal, and learn how not to interfere with it and make it slave to time. For what you think you do to the eternal, you do to you. For what you think you do to the eternal, you do to you. Whom God created as His Son is slave to no one, being Lord of all, along with His Creator. You can enslave a body, but an idea is free, incapable of being kept in prison or limited in any way, except by the mind that thought it. For it remains joined to its source, which is its jailer or its liberator, according to which it chooses as its purpose for itself. So we just finished reading the first section of chapter 19. Chapter 19 is entitled From Sin to Peace, and it has 4 sections and 4 subsections after in section 4. We just read the first section, Healing Through Faith, and we're going to read the second one, Sin versus Error. 1. It is essential that error be not confused with sin, and it is this distinction which makes salvation possible. For error can be corrected and the wrong made right, but sin, were it possible, would be irreversible. Sin, were it possible, would be irreversible, whereas error could be corrected. The belief in sin is necessarily based on the firm conviction that minds, not body, can attack. And thus the mind is guilty and will forever so remain, unless a mind, not part of it, can give it absolution. Sin calls for punishment, as error for correction, and the belief that punishment is correction is clearly insane. Two, sin is not error, for sin entails an arrogance which the idea of error lacks. Sin is not error. To sin would be to violate reality and to succeed. Sin is a proclamation that attack is real and guilt is justified. It assumes the Son of God is guilty and has thus succeeded in losing his innocence and making of himself what God created not. Thus is creation seen as not eternal, the will of God open to opposition and defeat. Sin is the grand illusion underlying all the ego's grandiosity. For by it, God himself is changed and rendered incomplete. Three, the Son of God can be mistaken. He can deceive himself. He can even turn the power of his mind against himself. But he cannot sin. There is nothing he can do that would really change his reality in any way or make him really guilty. That is what sin would do, for such is its purpose. Yet, for all the wild insanity inherent in the whole idea of sin, it is impossible. For the wages of sin is death, and how can the immortal die? Four, a major tenet in the ego's insane religion is that sin is not error but truth, and it is innocence that would deceive. Purity is seen as arrogance, and the acceptance of the self as sinful is perceived as holiness. And it is this doctrine that replaces the reality of the Son of God and his Father created him and willed that he be forever, as his Father created him and willed that he be forever. Is this humility? Or is it rather an attempt to wrest creation away from truth and keep it separate? 5. Any attempt to reinterpret sin as error is wholly indefensible to the ego. The idea of sin is wholly sacrosanct in its thought system and quite unapproachable except through reverence. It is the most holy, quote-unquote, concept in the ego system, loved and powerful, wholly true, and necessarily protected with every defense at its disposal. For here lies its best, quote-unquote, defense, which all the others serve. Here is its armor, its protection, and the fundamental purpose of the special relationship in its interpretation. 6. It can indeed be said the ego made its world of sin. Only in such a world could everything be upside down. This is the strange illusion which makes the clouds of guilt seem heavy and impenetrable. The solidness this world's foundation seems to have is found in this. For sin has changed creation from an idea of God to an ideal the ego wants, a world it rules, made up of bodies, mindless and capable of complete corruption and decay. 7. If this is a mistake, it can be undone easily by truth. Any mistake can be corrected if truth be led to judge it. But if the mistake is given the status of the truth, to what can it be brought? The holiness, quote-unquote, of sin is kept in place by just this strange device. As truth, it is inviolate, and everything is brought to it for judgment. As truth, it is inviolate, and everything is brought to it for judgment. As a mistake, it must be brought to truth. It is impossible to have faith in sin, for sin is faithlessness. But it is possible to have faith that a mistake can be corrected. 8. There is no stone in all the ego's citadel more heavily defended than the idea that sin is real. The natural expression of what the Son of God has made himself to be and what he is. To the ego, this is no mistake, for this is its reality. This is the truth, quote unquote, from which escape will always be impossible. This is his past, his present, and his future, for he has somehow managed to corrupt his father and change his mind completely. 9. Mourn them the death of God, whom sin has killed. And this would be the ego's wish, which in its madness it thinks it has accomplished. Would you not rather that all this be nothing more than a mistake, entirely correctable, and so easily escaped from, that its whole correction is like walking through a mist into the sunlight? For that is all it is. Perhaps you would be tempted to agree with the ego that it is far better to be sinful than mistaken, but think you carefully before you allow yourself to make this choice. Approach it not lightly, for it is the choice of hell or heaven. 3. So we just read 2 sections, and so we read the first section, chapter 19, From Sin to Peace. The first section, Healing Through Faith. The second one, Sin versus Error. And we will start reading the third section, The Unreality of Sin. 1. The attraction of guilt lies in sin, not error. Sin will be repeated because of this attraction. Fear can become so acute that the sin is denied the acting out. But while the guilt remains attractive, the mind will suffer and not let go the idea of the sin. For guilt still calls to it, and the mind hears it and yearns for it, making itself a willing captive to its sick appeal. Sin is an idea of evil that cannot be corrected and will be forever desirable. As an essential part of what the ego thinks you are, you will always want it. And only an avenger with a mind unlike your own could stamp it out through fear. 2. The ego does not think it possible that love, not fear, is really called upon by sin, and always answers. For the ego brings sin to fear, demanding punishment. But punishment is but another form of guilt protection, for what is deserving punishment must have really been done. Punishment is always the great preserver of sin, treating it with respect and honoring its enormity. What must be punished must be true, and what is true must be eternal and will be repeated endlessly. For what you think is real you want and will not let it go. 3. An error, on the other hand, is not attractive. What you see clearly as a mistake you want corrected. Sometimes a sin can be repeated over and over with obviously distressing results, but without the loss of its appeal. And suddenly, you change its status from sin to a mistake. Now you will not repeat it. You will merely stop and let it go, unless the guilt remains. For then you will but change the form of sin. granting that it was an error but keeping it uncorrectable. This is not really a change in your perception, for it is sin that calls for punishment, not error. 4. The Holy Spirit cannot punish sin. Mistakes he recognizes and would correct them all, as God entrusted him to do. But sin he knows not, nor can he recognize mistakes that cannot be corrected. For a mistake that cannot be corrected is meaningless to him. Mistakes are for correction. They call for nothing else. What calls for punishment must call for nothing. Yet every mistake must be a call for love. What then is sin? What could it be but a mistake you would keep hidden, a call for help that you keep unheard and thus unanswered? Question. What is then sin? What could it be but a mistake you would keep hidden, a call for help that you would keep unheard and thus unanswered? 5. In time, the Holy Spirit clearly sees the Son of God can make mistakes. On this you share his version, but you do not share his recognition of the difference between time and eternity. The Holy Spirit knows that time is for correction, and when correction is completed, time is eternity. 6. Time is like a downward spiral that seems to travel down from a long and broken line, along another plane, but which in no way breaks the line of interferes with its smooth continuousness. Along the spiral, it seems as if the line must have been broken, but at the line, its wholeness is apparent. Everything seen from the spiral is misperceived, but as you approach the line, you realize that it was not affected by the drop into another plane at all. But from this plane, the line seems discontinuous. This is the definition of line of time. 7. And this is but an error in perception which can be easily corrected in the mind, although the body's eyes will see no change. The eyes see many things the mind corrects, and you respond not to the eye's illusions, but to the mind's corrections. You see the line as broken, and as you shift to different aspects of the spiral, the line looks different. Yet in your mind is one who knows it is unbroken and forever changeless. 8. This one can teach you how to look on time differently and to see beyond it, but not while you believe in sin. In error, yes, for this can be corrected by the mind. But sin is the belief that your perception is unchangeable and that the mind must accept as true what it is told through it. If it does not obey, the mind is judged insane. The only power that could change perception is thus kept impotent, held to the body by the fear of changed perception, which its teacher, who is one with it, would bring. 9. When you are tempted to believe that sin is real, remember this: if sin is real, both God and you are not. There is no choice but this. If creation is extension, the Creator must have extended himself, and it is impossible that what is part of him is totally unlike the rest. If sin is real, God must be at war within himself. He must be split and torn between good and evil, partially sane and partially insane, for he must have created what wills to destroy him and has the power to do so. It is not easier to believe that you have been mistaken than to believe in this? Is it not easier to believe that you have been mistaken than to believe in this? 10. While you believe that your reality or your brother's is bounded by a body, you will believe in sin. While you believe that your reality or your brother's is bounded by a body, you will believe in sin. While you believe that bodies can unite, you will find guilt attractive and believe that sin is precious. For the belief that bodies limit the mind leads to a perception of the world in which the proof of separation seems to be everywhere. And God and His creation seem to be split apart and overthrown. For sin would prove what God created holy could not prevail against it, nor remain itself before its power. 11. Sin is perceived as mightier than God, before which God Himself must bow and offer His creation to its conqueror. Sin is perceived as mightier than God, before which God Himself must bow and offer His creation to its conqueror. Is this humility or madness? If sin were real, it would forever be beyond the hope of healing. Morning. For there would be a power beyond God's capable of making another will, which could attack His will and overcome it, and give His Son a will apart from His and stranger. And each part of His fragmented creation would have a different will, opposed to His and in eternal opposition to Him and to each other. 12. Your holy relationship has as its purpose now the goal of proving this is impossible. Heaven has smiled upon it, and the belief in sin has been uprooted in its smile of love. You see it still, because you do not realize that its foundation has gone. Its source has been removed, and so it can be cherished but a little while before it vanishes. Only the habit of looking for it still remains. And yet, you look with heaven's smile upon your lips and heaven's blessing on your sight. 13. You will not see sin long, for in the new perception, the mind corrects it when it seems to be seen, and it becomes invisible. But errors are quickly recognized and quickly given to correction to be healed, not hidden. You will be healed of sin and all its ravages the instant that you give it no power over each other. And you will help each other overcome mistakes by joyously releasing one another from the belief in sin. 14. In the holy instant, you will see the smile of heaven shining on both of you, and you will shine upon each other in glad acknowledgement of the grace that has been given you. For sin will not prevail against the union heaven has smiled upon. Your perception was healed in that holy instant heaven gave you. Forget what you have seen and raise your eyes in faith to what you now can see. The barriers to heaven will disappear before your holy sight. For you who were sightless have been given vision, and you can see. Look not for what has been removed, but for the glory that has been restored for you to see. 15. Look upon your Redeemer, and behold what He would show you in each other. And let not sin arise again to blind your eyes, for sin would keep you separate, but your Redeemer would have you look upon each other as yourself. So now we're getting ready to read the fourth section. So we're reading chapter 19 from Sin to Peace, and we've read 3 sections. The first one, healing through faith. The second one, sin versus error. The third one, the unreality of sin. The fourth one, the obstacles of peace, is the one I will read right now. The obstacles to peace. And this section has 4 subsections, A, B, C, and D. And we'll see what obstacles to peace we have brought upon ourselves. We've chosen to, before we seem to have chosen to keep, but now we're willing to release them. 4. The obstacles to peace. 1. Your relationship is now a temple of healing, a place where all the weary ones can come and find rest. Here is the rest that waits for all after the journey, and it is brought nearer to all by your relationship. As this peace expands from deep inside yourself to embrace all the sonship and give it rest, it will encounter many obstacles. Some of them you will try to interpose. Others will seem to arise from elsewhere, from your brothers and from various aspects of the world outside. But peace will gently cover them, extending past completely unhindered. 2. The extension of the Holy Spirit's purpose from your relationship to others to bring them gently in has already begun. This is the way in which He will bring means and goal in line. The peace He laid deep within both of you will quietly extend to every aspect of your lives, surrounding both of you with glowing happiness and the calm awareness of complete protection. And you will carry its message of love and safety and freedom to everyone who draws nigh unto your temple where healing waits for him. 3. You will not wait to give him this, for you will call to him and he will answer, recognizing in your call the call of God. And you will draw him in and give him rest, and it was as it was given you. All this will you do, but the peace that already lies deeply within must first expand and flow across the obstacles you place before it. This it will do, for nothing that is undertaken with the Holy Spirit remains unfinished. You can indeed be sure of nothing that you see outside you, but of this you can be sure. The Holy Spirit asks that you offer Him a resting place where you will rest in Him. He answered you and entered your relationship. Would you not now return His graciousness and enter into a relationship with Him? For it is He who offered your relationship the gift of holiness, without which it would have been forever impossible. Excuse me, my phone seems to be in no battery. Sorry for the interruption. So 4, the Holy Spirit asks that you offer Him a resting place where you will rest in Him. He answered you and entered your relationship. Would you not now return His graciousness and enter into our relationship with Him? For it is He who offered your relationship the gift of holiness, without which it would have been forever impossible to appreciate each other. The gratitude you owe to Him is, He asks, but did you receive for Him? And when you look with gentle graciousness upon each other, you are beholding Him. Oh. For you are looking where He is and not apart from you. That is so beautiful. 5. You cannot see the Holy Spirit, but you can see your brothers truly. And the light in them will show all that you need to see. When the peace in you has been extended to encompass everyone, the Holy Spirit's function here will be accomplished. What need is there for seeing then? When God has taken the last step Himself, the Holy Spirit will gather all your thanks and gratitude to you that you have offered Him and laid them gently before His Creator, in the name of His most holy Son. And the Father will accept them in His name. What need is there of seeing in the presence of His gratitude? A. The first obstacle. So remember, we're reading section 4, and section 4 is entitled the obstacles to peace. So we're going to start reading the 4 obstacles to peace that we have chosen to keep, but we're now willing to release, right? Identify them and release. The first obstacle, the desire to get rid of it. The first obstacle to peace is that we desire to get rid of peace. 1. The first obstacle that peace must flow across is your desire to get rid of it. For it cannot extend unless you keep it. So we have to keep it to be able to extend peace and not get rid of it. You are the center from which it radiates outward to call the others in. You are its home, its tranquil dwelling place, from which it gently reaches out, but never leaving you. If you would make it homeless, how can it abide within the Son of God? If it would spread across the whole creation, it must begin with you. And from you, reach to everyone who calls and bring him rest by joining you. 2. Why would you want peace homeless? What do you think that it must dispossess to dwell in you? What seems to be the cost you are so unwilling to pay? The little barriers of sand still stand between you. Would you reinforce them now? You are not asked to let them go for yourselves alone. Christ asks it of you for himself. He would bring peace to everyone, and how can he do this except through you? Would you let a little bank of sand, a wall of dust, a tiny seeming barrier, stand between your brothers and salvation? 3. And yet it is this little remnant of attack you cherish still against each other that is the first obstacle the peace in you encounters in its going forth. This little veil, this little wall of hatred would still oppose the will of God and keep it limited. The Holy Spirit's purpose rests in peace within you. Yet you are still unwilling to let it join you wholly. You still oppose the will of God just by a little, but that little is a limit you would place upon the whole. God's will is one, not many. It has no opposition, for there is none beside it. 4. What you would still contain behind your little barrier and keep separate from each other seems mightier than the universe, for it would hold back the universe and its creator. The little wall would hide the purpose of heaven and keep it from heaven. Would you thrust salvation away from the giver of salvation? For there have you become, for such have you become. Peace could no more depart from you than from God. Peace could no more depart from you than from God. Good morning, Vilmar. Fear not this little obstacle. It cannot contain the will of God. Peace will flow across it and join you without hindrance. 5. Salvation cannot be withheld from you. It is your purpose. You cannot dwell apart from this. You have no purpose apart from each other or apart from the one you ask the Holy Spirit to share with you. The little wall will fall away so quietly beneath the wings of peace. For it will send its messengers from you to all the world, and barriers will fall away before their coming as easily as those which you would interpose will be surmounted. To overcome the world is no more difficult than to surmount your little wall. For in the miracle of your relationship, without this barrier is every miracle contained. 6. There is no order of difficulty in miracles, for they are all the same. Each is a gentle winning over from the appeal of guilt to the appeal of love. How can this fail to be accomplished wherever it is undertaken? Guilt can raise no real barriers against it, and all that seems to stand between you must fall away because of the appeal you answered. And from you who answered, he who answered you would call. His home is in your holy relationship. Do not attempt to stand between him and his holy purpose, for it is yours. But let him quietly extend the miracle of your relationship to everyone contained in it as it was given. 7. There is a hush in heaven, a happy expectancy, a little pause of gladness in acknowledgement of the journey's end. For heaven knows you well. As you know heaven, no illusions stand between you. Look not upon the little wall of shadows. The sun has risen over it. How can a shadow keep you from the sun? No more can you be kept by shadows from the light in which illusions end. Every miracle is but the end of an illusion. Such was the journey, such its ending. And in the goal of truth, which you accepted, must all illusions end. 8. The little insane wish to get rid of him whom you invited in and push him out must produce conflict. As you look upon the world, this little wish, uprooted and floating aimlessly, can lead and settle briefly, can land and settle briefly upon anything. But it has no purpose now. Before the Holy Spirit entered to abide within you, it seemed to have a mighty purpose, the fixed and unchangeable dedication to sin and its results. Now it is aimless, wandering pointlessly, causing no more than tiny interruptions in love's appeal. 9. This feather of a wish, this tiny illusion, this microscopic remnant of the belief in sin, is all that remains of what once seemed to be the world. It is no longer an unrelenting barrier to peace. Its pointless wandering makes its results appear to be more erratic and unpredictable than before. But what could be more unstable than a tightly organized delusional system? Its seeming stability is its pervasive weakness, which extends to everything. The variability which the little remnant induces merely indicates its limited results. 10. How mighty can a little feather be before the great wings of truth? Can it oppose an eagle's flight or hinder the advance of summer? Can it interfere with the effect of summer's sun upon a garden covered by the snow? See but how easily this little wisp is lifted up and carried away, never to return. And part with it in gladness, not regret. For it is nothing in itself, and stood for nothing when you had great faith in its protection. Would you not rather greet the summer sun than fix your gaze upon a disappearing snowflake and shiver in remembrance of the winter's cold? The messengers of love. I think I will stop here and will resume my transmission in a minute. So I will stop in the messengers of love. I will restart later. See you later.